I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to review an album from a British indie rock band called Yuck, which is an interesting band title. It just kind of sets Yuck, Yuck. I don't know.
It's very indie.
Yeah, it's a very indie. No, they came out with their first album in 2011. We reviewed it back then, and actually we liked it. We gave it, I think, an 80, somewhere right around there. And it had an edge. They had the attitude that you would expect from an indie rock band named Yuck. Yeah. And it had a lot of just good guitar work on the album. A lot of catchy guitar hooks, a good energy to it. It just had this attitude about it that just made it kind of sold it as just a cool indie rock album. So, really excited to see where the band was going to go from there, as we usually are when we like a debut album. Yeah. And now in 2013, we get the band's second record, Glow and Behold. So, the band lost one of their founding members, Daniel Blumberg. I think I said that right. And this, from what I've read, Daniel Blumberg was one of the guys who really added a lot of the edge on the debut. So, whenever you have a lineup change, especially going from a debut album to a sophomore release, you always have to expect a sound change, at least of some sorts. And I would say Glow and Behold, definitely, there's a major sound change. Starting off, this album, well, Tom, I'm actually going to give it to you. How is the sound different than the debut?
Well, I mean, to start, when I first put this on, I could barely tell it was the same band. Yeah. It's really only in certain moments.
Yeah, the fact that they are still playing guitars.
Yeah, yeah, there's still instruments in there. So they have that in common, right? But when you go into this, the first thing I noticed was just the production change and general sound change.
Right. Less lo-fi.
Yes, and you'd mentioned that, losing the band member, maybe losing a little bit of that edge, and that's something that defined their debut for me, was that guitar edge, that kind of fuzzy Dinosaur Jr. type guitar sound.
Absolutely.
There's not much of that on here. Obviously, there's guitar still, but it's a little washier. It's a little more atmospheric.
It's a little bit more My Bloody Valentine.
Totally. This album sounds closer to the new Someone Still Loves You Boris Yeltsin album than it does Yuck's debut, really.
Absolutely.
And it's all about that atmosphere and that, as you said, kind of My Bloody Valentine type guitar. Even Smith Westerns, another contemporary.
Yeah, you can definitely tell they still have that 90s alternative rock influence in there.
Yeah, and the songwriting is still closer to that side of things, I would say. You listen to songs like Lose My Breath and Middle C, and yeah, they sound like something straight out of the 90s, but then it's presented in a much different light. It's not as fuzzy, it's not as aggressive.
It's much just cleaner sounding,
and
that's just straight up due to the production.
And it's like they're trying to go for more of an emotional appeal than they are just that kind of fun punk rock attitude.
Well, and just to start, the album opens with Sunrise and Maple Shade, and that's like a 3-minute instrumental track which has really slow-moving guitar melodies. Yeah. And then later on in the album, it has track 10, there before the self-titled closer, Twilight and Maple Shade.
Which I actually thought that was a great track.
Yeah, actually, I like both those tracks a lot. I think it's cool the direction that they're going and embracing this change that the band had to go through in their sound. It's cool that they actually committed to it and wanted to do something with it. Where I think it gets a little sticky, and Tom, tell me if you agree here, is that these songs just don't, because they don't have an edge, and they're not like, their scope isn't so grand that they're really experimenting at all. These are very basically written, and I'm not talking structure. I don't really think that there's any problems with song structure here. I think it's actually the songwriting itself, the construction of the melodies, the construction of the different guitar parts. There's some moments on this album where I feel like the guitars are nice, but they're produced so cleanly that they just have no edge. The vocalist is kind of, he's not projecting in a way that he's kind of that My Bloody Valentine sort of vocalist. It sounds washy. It gets washed out with the guitars. This is a different album with less edge, and because of that, some of these songs, they don't have a lot of dynamic contrast in them. They don't have a lot of very experimental instrumentation. It makes these songs seem a little bit mundane.
Yeah, and it makes for a listen that's just not quite as convincing.
It's not riveting.
It
doesn't grasp you.
No, it really doesn't. It doesn't really suck you in. I mean, it's enjoyable while you're listening to it. There are some tracks that are better than others. That's another knock against this album, is like I can pick out 3 or 4 tracks that just go right over my head. I don't really care for them as much. I would say in particular the 2 before Twilight and Maple Shade, Nothing New and How Does It Feel. They're all right, but by that point in the album, you kind of heard it before, and they're just kind of reiterating ideas that they've already explored.
Yeah, you hear a lot of similar ideas throughout the album.
Which at first I didn't really expect, because in those first 4 or 5 tracks, they actually explore some different areas, but then they don't even take it a step further from there. It's kind of like, well, we'll pick this idea or this idea and run with it some more, but by that point, I'm kind of done with it. And it's not to a point where it's offensively uneasy to listen to.
Right.
I still enjoy the album, but I come out of it fairly underwhelmed.
That's a good way to put it.
But yeah, but still decently impressed more by the sound than songwriting, though.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking forward to seeing where these guys are going next. This is a huge jump from their first album.
And by no means is this a bad record.
No,
I think this is a nice listen.
Yeah.
I put this on and I go, yeah, this is okay. It just doesn't blow me away. And the sad truth is that I expect a lot from bands right now. I expect a lot. You need to do something original for me to be truly impressed with an album. Maybe that's a snobby, elitist way to be, but that's just the sort of thing that I'm into. Hearing rehashed ideas over and over again. A lot of the ideas presented on this album have been done by indie bands for the last 20 years, and were done by bands before that. So, I mean, this isn't original content by any means. It's presented very nicely in a very simplistic way, and it makes for a very, decent listen.
Yeah.
But it's just nothing that's going to blow you away. It's nothing that's going to truly impress you. Now, I can see putting this on and enjoying it, but I gotta say, I enjoyed this the most on first listen, and listens 2, 3, 4, and 5, and maybe even on after that. Kind of lost count after a certain point.
Yeah.
But they haven't been quite as gripping for me, and I think that goes down to songwriting. Now, I gotta say, the last track I thought was really good. I thought it was a really nice way to close. Longest track on the album, most progressive track on the album. I was actually quite impressed with that track, and I would like to see more of that or hear more of that on future releases. What are you gonna give this, Tito?
I'm giving this a 70.
Okay, I'm a little lower than you, 68.
All right.
69. And I want to say that this is typically a mark of an album that has some negative qualities to it. And I don't think that there's any real stark negative qualities to this. Just a lot of just things that could be improved, that could make this a more engaging, awesome sonic experience. And really, it's kind of unfortunate, but at the same time, this band had to get a foothold after losing a member. That's a tough transition for any band to go through.
Yeah.
What did you guys think about Yuck's second record, Glow and Behold? Did you like it more or less than their debut record that came out a couple years ago? And just, this is a cool band. Where do you want to see them go in the future? Let us know at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. Let us know what albums you're into that you'd like to see us review on this channel. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.